So, I watched Marvel's version of Suicide Squad, Thunderbolts! Asterisk mark. Hey there guys, so I saw Thunderbolts over a week ago, and I've been thinking about this movie a lot, more than I would almost like to admit. Sometimes when I close my eyes late at night, I think about Thunderbolts. Sometimes when I'm taking a crap, I think about Thunderbolts. At this point in the MCU, the Avengers are basically non-existent, which gives the spotlight to the lesser-known misfits, the Thunderbolts. Yes, the Thunderbolts. Honestly, for the most part, I found the tone of this film to be very refreshing because after years and years of being inundated with generic, bloated, cosmic mayhem from the MCU, it was nice to step away from all of that in this film and just see a much more subdued, grounded approach to heroes trying to save the day while dealing with their own bullshit and trauma. Yeah, there's no cosmic hammers that can save the day or suits of armor that cost billions of dollars. Nah. This is just a group of misfits that punch and shoot their way out of most situations. And sure, some of them do have some superhuman agility ever so slightly. These are just very flawed anti-heroes. And for me, when it comes to characters, the flawed character is by far the most interesting character because I relate to fuck-ups. Because, hey, maybe I am one. And maybe you are too. And that right there is the biggest compliment I can give this movie. It at least tries to focus on the characters and give them some moments without this bloated mess circling around them. Though it does get there by the third act of the movie, and we will talk about that. But it was just nice to see some grounded character moments. Except for Taskmaster. Nobody cares about Taskmaster. The first act of this movie all takes place at the same location, and it brings the team together. The thing I found really interesting about all of this was, none of the characters had the foresight to see what was coming. Keep in mind, a lot of these characters have been double-crossed and betrayed in the past, so not to see what was coming from a mile away just felt like plot convenience to me. But for the sake of the movie, I just sat back with my free small popcorn and free small soda, thanks Fandango, and kept watching. But I'll tell you what really surprised me was just how long this movie stays at that opening location. I assumed the story would take place there for 10 minutes and we would move on to something else. Yeah, more or less, this movie only takes place in a few locations, and it sort of feels like you go from point A to point B, and before you know it, the movie abruptly ends. And we'll talk more about that in just a few seconds. But first, let's talk more about this ragtag team of misfits that come together to save the day. When all of these characters first encounter each other, they're sort of bickering and arguing like siblings over the front seat of who gets shotgun on the way to Walmart. And trust me, I've been there, I've done it. I almost got into a fist fight with my best friend one day because, hey, pride is a hard thing to swallow. But eventually that team building aspect does come into play, and I did enjoy some of the insults they gave each other. I thought that was smart. They talk crap about each other's superpowers, or maybe some of the things they've done in their past, and I liked some of those things. The star of this movie is Florence Pugh, who plays Yelena, the younger sister to Black Widow, and she is now our Black Widow. I like me some Florence Pugh, and the way that she portrays the character Yelena is very relatable. There's some nuance. She feels like a real 20-something-year-old playing this badass spy espionage character that has charisma, and she has a heart of gold, but she's also dealing with a lot of past trauma. And when it comes to her character, I really enjoy her. I don't really have many complaints. My only complaint really is this. When this film deals with her past trauma, with flashbacks of her training in the Red Room to become this cold, calculated, sociopathic spy, I liked a lot of those flashbacks because they do get sort of dark and morbid at times, but my only complaint is I wish it would have delved a little bit deeper. Give me more of that. Make me feel something. But then again, at the end of the day, this is a popcorn comic book movie made for 10-year-olds. So yeah, more or less, this film does ride that surface level line where it could go dark and deeper and more morbid, but it doesn't quite get there, and I just wish it would have. But real quick, the last thing I want to say about Florence Pugh's character in this film, she is one of the highlights, much like she was one of the highlights in the 2021 instantly forgettable Marvel film, Black Widow, which just so happened to have some of the worst CG I've ever seen. Oh my god, look at that. But hey, if for nothing else, at least that movie gave us Florence Pugh as the character Yelena, which is one of the best things. But I'll tell you the second best thing that instantly forgettable 2021 Black Widow movie gave us, and that was the character Red Guardian, played by David Harbour, who is the comedic relief of Thunderbolts and probably one of my favorite characters in the film. So when it comes to the character Red Guardian, he has this really lovable dad energy about him, and it just works. Yeah, the best way to describe him is he's sort of like Santa Claus, but all jacked up on super soldier serum, and he drives a red limo. And by the way, speaking of red limos, did you guys see that new popcorn bucket for Thunderbolts? It's the Red Guardian's crusty limo. I want that, but I don't know where I would put it or what I would do with it. And then there's John Walker, the Kmart Captain America. And hey, look, I love a good asshole character, and every team needs that character. And if you really think about it, maybe being an asshole is just armor to protect how vulnerable you really are deep down inside. Or at least that's my excuse. His character adds a nice edge to the group and sort of calls people out on their shortcomings, which I think every group needs. And I will say this, his interpretation of Captain America, I find far more interesting than the latest version of Captain America we got in the solo Captain America movie. Just putting it out there. And oh yeah, speaking of that, they do reference a few things that happen in Falcon and Winter Soldier in this film as well, so look out for that. I'm glad they did it too. And then you have the characters of Ghost, who just kind of fades into the background, figuratively and literally, and the character Taskmaster, which doesn't matter. And when it comes to the character Bob, there are some things I liked, and I do have some complaints about the character, but really my biggest gripe is I think they should have given us more backstory on the character, and there's a lot more I want to say about the character and some comparisons I want to make, but I'll just save those things for a spoiler video later on. So look out for that. Now let's talk about what really didn't work in this movie. The main overarching antagonist throughout this film is played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who plays this corrupt politician pulling the strings because she wants more power. And it's just like, I don't care about your motivation, and I don't really find it all that interesting. The best way to describe it is, I sort of felt like I was watching Elaine from Seinfeld on a power trip. That's how serious I could take her character. So not very serious at all.
The dingo ate your baby.
And speaking of her character, what they do with her in the third act of this film, the way it concludes, I just was not really into it. It felt so anticlimactic. But speaking of the climax of this movie, there is a much bigger threat looming. And I thought there were ideas of something sinister and evil lurking. And I was hoping and praying that the movie would commit to those ideas. And once again, without diving too deep into spoilers, therein lies one of my biggest complaints with this current incarnation of the MCU. Is anything actually ever really final in these movies? I don't know. One thing that really took me back about the film Thunderbolts is it's missing a second act, or at least it feels that way, because you have this very long opening sequence that takes place in one location, a very short road trip, and then boom, before you know it, it's the finale of the movie, and it's over. And you go, whoa, what just happened? It's like someone hit fast forward on the pacing of this movie, and that's one of my biggest complaints about it. It's missing a second act. I wanted more time to hang out with these characters, have more banter, get to know each other, have more flashbacks, make me care even more. But it feels like that second act, where all that would happen, doesn't exist. But with all that said, the thing that stands out most about Thunderbolts is it deals with themes of depression, regret, broken relationships, and I much prefer those darker themes, and that emotional depth is where this film truly shines. Unfortunately, all of those strong characters and emotional backstories are still stuck in this formulaic Marvel shell of a comic book movie. So while this might be one of the better Marvel films in recent years, let's all be honest, the bar has not necessarily been all that high or consistent, but I will say I enjoyed the character moments in this film, but it is a very, very flawed movie. And at the end of the day, even with all of its flaws and shortcomings and some of my criticisms, I would much prefer watching a movie like this in the MCU over something like Marvel's last movie that they gave us. So yeah, there's that. I'm going to give Thunderbolts this right here. It's an entertaining enough comic book movie to hang out and watch for 2 hours and eat some popcorn. But I probably wouldn't go back and rewatch it again anytime soon, but I am curious to see what some of these characters do next. And oh yeah, there are 2 after credit scenes, so don't go anywhere. If you have to pee, just use your popcorn bucket or wait till your bladder explodes like mine was going to, but there are 2 after credit scenes. I don't feel like they're anything mind-blowing, but they were sort of cool to watch. So that's what I thought about the film Thunderbolts. Now here's my question for you, and let me know down below. If you've seen the movie, what did you think about it? Or what is your favorite team-up movie where a group of heroes have to save the day that's not a comic book movie? Yeah, let me know that down below. If I had to pick one, I'd probably go with... I'm gonna go with Predator. Yeah, definitely Predator. So do it now, and subscribe. That way I can see you next time. Take care.